Barry John was caught speeding or something by the police, and they said, "What's your name?" And he said, "Barry John." And the police cynically said, "And I suppose that's Gareth Edwards sitting by you."
Don't just talk it, walk it. Walk is on. Don't just talk it, walk it. Walk is on.
Gareth, how we doing, my man?
Well, very nice music, but I prefer BB King if you got anything.
How are you doing, mate? Busy day?
Yes, indeed.
You like your little strip down in Puthcall, you said?
Yeah, I had a nice walk down in Puthcall. Then went home and showered because I was feeling tired, actually. I thought it'd better wake me up.
Yep. I like the outfit, mate. I like the attire. It's very, very smart. Maybe I should take note of all that.
Well, no, because Ria didn't seem to think it would be visual, but I thought just in case.
Well, you scrubbed up well for it anyway, mate. Mate, how do you find the weekend's game? Halo Q.
Good, very good. It was interesting game. In the first half, I thought it was very even.
Yeah.
And in fact, I thought the Halo Q pack probably a bit stronger than the Ath, but it was complete reversal in the next half.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good game. It was some nice tries. Nice. Your scrum half is cocky. He left scoring, didn't he? You can see a big smile on his face when he scored.
Jake Wills, yeah, mate. He's a good bloke. He's an interesting character. He's got a lot of energy.
Yeah, I looking at him, I would have thought that. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He's a really good man. I suppose as well. How many years have you been a part of Bridgend Athletic?
Oh, I'm not sure, to be honest with you.
You've been sponsoring for a long time now.
I don't know, 10, 12, I'm not sure.
Nice, mate. It's, well, you've helped the club massively anyway.
Oh.
But I suppose today, mate, I know there's a lot of things we can talk about, but for me, it's probably admiration of the work that you've done. I love people who are go-getters and having a go in life and entrepreneurial mindsets and backgrounds. So I suppose today, rather than having you on to kind of pick your brain, learn, the key components in successful business and the pros and cons. So I thought I'd get you on. But so, Matt, when we start about Gareth Edwards' property and real estate, where did it all start?
Oh, well, I started in the estate agent business when I was 21 with a firm called Powell and Verity. I worked for a couple of other firms, but then I went on to my own when I was 27.
Wow. And what was the reason to go, I'm going to go solo here?
Well, it was very much largely due to a friend of mine who was a very good rugby player, as it happened, a guy by the name of Brian Williams, Shrimp Williams. I knew him because he'd been in Llandovery with my brother, and he was, as I say, he was a very good rugby player. Played for Pontypridd. I think he was captain when they won the championship year, and he was a solicitor with a firm called Edward Lewis and Possard. But they had a branch in Bridgend, Stockwood Williams, and I was talking to him on the phone when I was working for this firm, Glenn Simons, and I said, "You're not Shrimp Williams?" And he said, "Oh, yes," he said. And we met, and he said to me, "Any chance you're going to work on your own? Or any chance of a partnership?" I said no, because the nephew of Glenn Simons was working there. I said, "I don't think there's any chance." So he said, "Why don't you go out on your own?" And, well, kind of long story short, my father's first reaction, "I'm not going to lend you any money on your foolhardy schemes." I said, "I don't want you to lend me any money. Edward and Lewis and Possard are willing to." Anyway, he came back a few hours later. He said, "I don't want you borrowing money outside the family." He lent me the money. He said, "Pay me back in 12 months. I paid him back in 6.
Wow. And that's how it all started?
Oh, that's how it all started, yeah.
So you've always had that bit in you of having a go?
Yeah, I think so, yes.
And that's not necessarily rare, but, I suppose, does fear impact you then of taking these risks, or do you kind of enjoy it?
Well, no, at first, I was very concerned. I didn't kind of go blasé, as far as I was concerned, I had to succeed. There was no question about it. I had to succeed.
It's interesting. I heard this off another guy. When you start business, there's two things that you should have. It's like a deep desire and a drive, and a bit of fire in your belly to kind of, I've got to back against the wall mentality.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's
Would
true.
you agree with that?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So, when you started getting into real estate, was it massive back then? Was it, there was an opportunity for business to be...
It is it's always been competitive. I don't think it probably is as competitive as it is now, because when I opened up in Bridgend, there was only a couple of other firms. Now there's probably about 8 or 10 in Bridgend now. Mind you, at the same time, the town has grown a lot. I mean, as I say, when I was in the business starting then, Kevin Glass, we sold a lot of properties of Kevin Glass. You didn't have Brackler, didn't have Broadlands. I mean, so they've added on to the size of Bridgend a hell of a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The growth of property now, it's crazy in comparison to what it was back then. Well, how much was the average house in Kevin Glass when you started off?
About 2,400.
2,400.
Yeah.
Much.
Yeah.
I'd like to think it's 200,000 now, possibly. Or
Well,
something
well,
like
yeah,
that.
but and more, yeah.
Yeah, wow. As you've scaled the business and I suppose, Gareth, grown the team, what are the biggest learnings you've had from trying to scale a business then?
I think the most important thing is to have good staff. I'm very, very fortunate right now. I've probably got the best staff I've ever had. But it's very, very important. The front line is very important. I'm a bit old-fashioned in the way that if I ring a firm, I'm speaking to an answer machine, that puts me off straight away. I like to speak to a human being. And that human being, the way that person comes across is very, very important. As I say, that's the front line.
Yeah.
But the way that person answers the phone can make or break an instruction.
So has sales always been something you've leaned into, or not essentially sales, but communication, customer service? Because I think it's massive. You leave a mark on a person, they're more than willing to do work with you, or they remember that conversation, how peaceful or welcoming that woman was, or man was on the phone.
Yeah. Well, yes, I would say so. Yes.
Was that something you were good at, and that's something you learnt on the journey?
I think yes. I think the best education is experience.
So, when you talk about experience, from starting with the company, who was the original company you worked with?
Powell and Verity.
Powell and Verity. What was something that you learned from them, and then you thought, right, I'm going to just add my sprinkle to it, essentially?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you pick up the good and then you discard the bad. I mean, I learned a lot from Powell and Verity, but some of their tactics, call it, I didn't adopt.
So, for listeners now who are in this generation in property real estate, what would be the key things that they should be doing to be a successful, if it's a self-employed or if it is working for a company?
Well, to set up now, number one, I think you got to need, especially nowadays, you need a big capital behind you. Big capital behind you now to start up. But also, again, know what you're doing. Have a good knowledge. Have a good grounding.
Yeah. With yourself then, though, you talk about knowledge, grounding, all of these things. How do you stay motivated then in business? Because you've been doing it for a long time, Gar.
Motivated? Well, the motivation to succeed. Motivation to succeed. I think, in all honesty, too, that when I look at all of my family, my uncle was a very successful solicitor. My uncle Glyn, he was a very, very hard-working guy. He was a butcher. So I think I had the work ethic. I think that is important. I'm sweating here.
I'll get you some tissues, mate.
No, it's all right.
I was going to say,
is it no ventilation?
No, mate. Unfortunately, with the weather like this, it actually cooks up. But I can get you a wipe if you want one.
Oh, no, don't worry about it.
Tell you what, we're like in a sauna. You know, and you talk about that, you know, regarding, you know, having generations, Gareth, where, you know, families have had businesses, uncles have had businesses. Do you feel any of this, like, desire to be like, right, I want to kind of carry the sword or kind of the shield?
Yeah, yes, I think so. My grandfather, again, he was a very successful businessman. He again was a butcher, but he owned a lot of properties. He was, again, very hardworking.
So when you say about that, though, you know, the businesses now, how involved are you now in the business? Was it kind of self-sufficient?
Well, it is very self-sufficient. As I said earlier, I'm fortunate, blessed with such good staff. Especially Alison and Terry have been with me a long, long time. They've been in the business a long time. They know the business, if I'm perfectly honest, far better than I do. They're excellent. As I say, staff is the most important as far as I'm concerned. I mean, same as you go into any shop, the way you're treated, whether you're going to go back there.
How do you find that, though, with businesses? Because you said then staff is key. So we know, if I was in an interview right now, I'm going to be my best version, aren't I, to you?
Yeah.
Well, after a month or two, we start to get comfortable. And then we sometimes then lose.
Yeah.
And then you've committed to a client then, or a staff member that you're like, shit.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. You see, this again, which I admire so much about Alison and Terry, they still got the same enthusiasm as if they just started in the business. And that's marvellous that they haven't, you know, often you get jaded, fed up with the business, fed up with dealing with people. But no, they still got the same enthusiasm, which is excellent, which is very important, I feel.
I think that's the big thing that I've learned, and I think when I surround myself and listened and speak to people like yourself, is you got to have that enthusiasm in you, even on the days you don't want to do it. You know what I mean? Recognizing, okay, there's a process to this. We got to stick to this. If we slip off the bandwagon, then, you know, there's always competitors. There's, like you said, there's 8 other estate agents now in the area. It keeps the fire under the belly. I remember, you know, when I connected to sports, I only felt the need to really step up is when you had someone on the bench or someone in your position at training. You're like, right, I gotta step it up here a bit now. You know, where before, if you're on your own, you can get complacent.
Yeah.
You agree with that?
Oh yeah.
It's just an interesting way of looking at it. But I suppose, with yourself now, Gar, like, what did you enjoy the most out of the business? What did you enjoy doing the most besides the money?
Well, I was just going to say, when you have a big commission coming in, that's what I enjoy the most.
I bet. And how do you deal with that in as a self-employed entrepreneur, a business owner, when you've got a team? You go, especially in real estate, it goes in peaks and troughs at stages. How do you learn to stay neutral through the good and the bad?
Well, how do you remain neutral?
How do you, where you don't let the emotions of the busy period get the best of you, and then the bad periods get the
well, you just got to get on with it. No, but I should have pointed out really when I jokingly said about a big commission. But no, if you get a good instruction, especially if a builder instructs you on a site, you know that's always big. And of course, then you got to nurture it and make sure you look after that client. But that's very important. Yeah.
What would you say then, Gar, was your turning point when you had the real estate? We go, wow. We're in you for the long. This is a long-term thing now. This is not a,
Oh, it was always a long term. When I started, never thought of anything else. No, it is purely, I'm in the estate agency. That's what I'm doing, and no, I never ever thought of any. I'm packing it now, and even now, I didn't say it, but my daughter said, "Oh, Dad will never retire," she said. He'll die first. And she's probably right.
I like that, though, where people... I think we need to have something to sense to get us out of bed in the morning and go...
Exactly. I see and hear of so many people, they retire, and if they're still married, they put the marriage under a lot of pressure. But... as I say, I enjoy still having an interest. I mean, as I say, I don't do any viewings or valuations now, but I enjoy doing the accounts, strangely enough, and I do all the additional adding up and that. I do it all mentally. I don't believe in using adding machines. Really? I do it all mentally, and it's good exercise of the brain.
So you do all the numbering, all that via just the mind?
Yeah.
I'm impressed.
Well, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
But as I say, I do all the ledgers, because there's generally 3 ledgers that I'm concentrating: Bridgend office, the rental commissions, and properties.
Yeah.
And every month I do that, and I get more of the kick out of doing it now than I did when I was working. When I was working hard, I think, oh God, I got to do that. But now I look forward to it because I suppose fills my day in. Yeah.
That's good though. That's I think people listening to this now would hear that and go, that makes sense. That having that sense of getting up and I got to get that done. And
oh yeah.
You've been into golf as well, or was?
Oh yeah. Yes, I played a lot of golf. I mean, I played golf 2 or 3 times a week for years. I loved my golf, but and the lowest handicap I got down to was 7. But the latter years, I just wasn't enjoying it. I was playing rubbish. My handicap was going higher and higher, and I couldn't even play to it. And I just suddenly packed it in. I just and the amazing thing is, although I loved golf, don't get me wrong, and I played for so many years, but once I picked it up, I packed it in, I didn't miss it.
Really?
Strangely, I didn't miss it. But I was very, very fortunate. A neighbour of mine who lived 3 doors up, Graham Hodgson, who was an ex-Welsh international fullback, played for Neath and Wales. He lived 3 doors up. And he was looking after a cousin of mine, Gareth Williams, another Welsh international and British Lion. Well, Gareth had an illness.
Yes.
And he was kind of, I don't know how to put it. He didn't have, his strength was being sapped slowly. And Gareth said to me, well, why don't you come walking with us down Porthcawl? We go down there every day. And I said, yeah, okay. And we used to, and it was only they used to go on a very, very short walk because Gareth's strength, they had to work, But I enjoyed it, and of course we talked rugby. Gareth and Graham didn't stop taking the
piss
out of each other, but they were very entertaining and both very good guys. And that's when later on, Gareth, I went on a cruise, and I had a phone call saying, are you coming walking? When I was in the cabin on this cruise ship. And I said, how the hell, who are you, Gareth? Yeah, well, how are you, how do you get this number? He said, I'm on the ship as well. He'd come on the cruise as well. And it is a good cruise, actually.
Yeah, Gareth's, I'm friends with his daughter, Nia. We went to school.
Sorry?
His daughter, Gareth, who passed away.
Yes.
His daughter, Nia.
All right.
At school, I see her weekly training and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's been interesting. What's up, guys? This podcast is brought to you by UTest. UTest provides clinically accurate, rapid home testing kits for a variety of medical conditions and deficiencies. Designed for convenience, these tests deliver results in just 5 minutes, eliminating the need to wait days or weeks for lab results. The range includes tests for prostate PSA levels, bowel cancer screening, onset menopause to fertility, and more. All tests are available with the next day delivery at www.utest.co.uk. Use the code 0010 for 10% off your order. Now, let's go back to the episode.
Oh, so you know Nia?
Yeah, Nia went to school with me, mate. So she's...
all right.
She's great. She's an absolute...
What was that, Brintig?
Brintig, yeah, because they used to live just at the top, I believe.
Well, that's right, Melton Drive.
Yeah, that's the one, mate. That's the one. But, yeah, he's a good guy. It's funny, mate. I don't know if this story's true. John told me this one, but do you have a friend called Barry John? Not the Barry John.
No, I know what you're saying. Yeah, I know what you're going to say.
What is it?
Well, this story has got twisted quite a bit, actually. There is a character by the name of Barry John. Strange enough, he was friendly with Alison, who works with me, they were both surfing together.
Right.
And Barry John was caught speeding or something by the police. And they said, "What's your name?" And he said, "Barry John." And the police cynically said, "And I suppose that's Gareth Edwards sitting by you." Well, it wasn't, the story was that it was me, but it was.
Right.
But the story goes around, but no, it is a guy by the name of Colin London, actually.
Yeah, I was playing golf with him the other day, and he said, "Ask him a story about Barry John." And the police officer pulled him up. He goes, "Let me guess, you're Barry John, and that's Gareth Edwards."
yeah. As I say, it is very funny when it's done. But of course, it got embellished that I was there, but it wasn't me, really. Yeah.
Oh, it's interesting. It's a good one. It's you go and have a laugh on you.
Yes, he was a character, that guy Barry John. Actually, as I say, he used to play for the Bridgend Sports.
Right.
And I don't know what's happened to him now, but he was very friendly with Alison. As I say, they used to go surfing down in Ogmund by Sea a lot.
How do you, going back to work? How do you, for instance, work with family? Because I hear a lot of people struggle working with family. Pros and cons, or?
Well, it can work out well. In actual fact, my second wife, she came to work for me, and I always remember my brother saying, I don't think that's such a wise thing. And she was good in some ways because she had a nice personality, but but she was nuts, mind you. No, she was a bit temperamental, and anyway, she didn't. She wasn't there too long.
Right.
In some ways, she was very good, but I think there was a bit of animosity amongst the staff too with her.
Yeah.
But no, in some ways, there was some brothers and sisters and family, brother and husband and wife. Sometimes it works out very well, but in other ways, it can put pressure. Especially if you're working with somebody all day, then going home and start all over again.
It's not really it's like you kind of haven't got that separation from each other then. Just in sync all day.
Well, that's right.
Your daughter works with you now?
Yeah, she only works a couple of days a week. Unfortunately, she's very good.
Yeah.
She's excellent. But she's very much into her poetry.
Right.
A few years ago, she got Welsh Writer of the Year.
Wow.
And in actual fact, I was out in Biarritz at the time with John.
Biarritz, good place.
And we kind of programmed in, and then she was later on being presented to the Queen. And
wow.
Oh yeah, but that's her thing. But I'm not into poetry myself, but that's her bag. So she works for a publishing firm in Bridgend, and she just works for me a couple of days a week.
Wow.
But as I say, she's got naturally very, very good. Again, going back to telephone manners, she's excellent on the phone. She's excellent with people. She's very much a state agency, again, I feel is very much a people's person. And she is, again, very much, she's very sociable. She's nothing like her mother.
So she's very much like you.
Yeah.
Would you say that's one of your knacks as well? You're very natural in this area,
Well,
state agency?
I think, yes, yeah, I would say so, yeah.
So did you feel like it come natural to you then?
Well, I suppose I probably talk too much. I think a lot of people would probably find me too garrulous.
I'm enjoying it, mate. I'm enjoying this journey, and for me, mate, it's really interesting to see just the journey you've been on, because from my end and other people's end from outside, we're always trying to get that 1% better. And what has he done? And what can I learn from this podcast today? What can I learn? And I've been blessed to get to know you now from the rugby games, and I thought, and seeing the things that you've done, and you say, you still go into the office and do bits and bobs and keeps you ticking over. Well, that to me tells me that I don't want to retire one day. I want to just keep going until the wheels fall off, essentially, because I want to do that. So, you say, can you tell pretty quickly whether someone would be good at a state agency or sales or communicating pretty quickly?
I would say so.
Got to be a bit extroverted and social.
I would generally, not always right, obviously, but I could normally be able to assess somebody within half an hour,
Really?
and say, well, they'd be good, or they won't be any good, kind of thing, yeah.
Do you find, I don't know if this is depends on your demographic or where you're from, though, but some of us struggle to talk about money. Like money, the word money depends where you're at, where you were brought up. For me, money was never spoken about at the dinner table growing up, you know what I mean? So it took a while for me to adjust and be comfortable, you know what I mean? To talk about it, not in a way of bragging, but it's just more about, I've worked my ass off, I'm worth this. When you say and that's what I think I like about, real estate or estate agency, it's commission. So you've got to get out and work for it.
Yeah.
So you are your own drive every day is your input is what you get on the output,
Yeah, mind you, I will say this, and I remember before I went on my own, as I said, I was working for a chap out of Glyn Simons, and he said, well, you may make a living, Gareth, but you won't make a lot of money out of a estate agency. You've got to speculate. And he was right. I mean, later on, as time went on, I started investing in property, buying properties, renting them, and of course, there's one thing I did learn again from in this estate agency, which I learned, property is always, been a couple of dips, but it's always gone up. Like what I said to you when I first started, Kevin Glass, those bungalows, they were selling for something like 2,400, something like that. Look at them now, you're over 200,000. So properties have always gone up.
Yeah.
I mean, there may have been, as I say, a couple of dips in 2008 and COVID time. But overall, it's always been a very good investment. And as I say, that's the best thing I ever did, was really start investing in properties. And I got a nice portfolio now.
How old were you when you bought your first property?
Sorry?
How old were you when you bought your first property?
I'm not sure, to be honest with you.
How many do you think you've got now?
I think it's 16, I think.
16. Wow. So that's basically just a passive income then, or an income stream that's just dripping in all the time every month.
Well, yes. I mean, that has given me the luxury of, if I wanted to get out of the estate agent business, I've got properties to live off,
I think that's I remember listening to this guy called Samuel Leeds. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, and he does this property investment and he talks about it and, ROIs on rentals. And I don't know, you might disagree on it, but, people rely on their pensions when they retire.
Yeah.
I personally don't. I don't want to go down the pension path. I want to invest in property and see that as another income stream.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's more reliable. You know what your money's doing for you, and go down that journey.
Mind you, with the various regulations that with the Westminster government and the Welsh government, they've hitting the landlords very, very badly, making everything on the side of the tenant. And unfortunately, if you have a bad tenant, it can be murder, get them out, and you could lose a lot of money. And this is why a lot of people now have got out. Got out of the market. I'm very, very fortunate again that I've got an extremely good rental manager who's very, very thorough, Grant. He's very excellent at his job. He's very, very thorough. And quite frankly, you're far better off leaving a property empty than getting a bloody tenant who's not going to pay. And touch wood, my properties, they're all first-class tenants.
Great. So, for instance, then, if someone decided not to pay their rent that month, how does that work then? Do you give them a warning? Do you let them...
Oh, yeah, we've got to give them a polite warning. You get in touch with them. I always think it's best to get in touch with them verbally first. Yeah. And if you don't get a response, then to write. But you don't like going down that avenue.
Yeah, no.
And as I say, especially touch wood. I say Grant is so good at his job. He's very, very thorough, checking up on their references, etc., previous properties they've let. Very, very thorough. And we've never, touch wood, never had to go to court.
Really?
To get anybody out.
That's impressive, especially with 16.
Oh, well, yeah, it is impressive because, especially if you watch some of these TV programs, God, it's been nightmares, especially up in the big cities, London and that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I do believe, though, as well, Gareth, like, the news just brainwashes us, mind. Not just in property, I mean in general.
Oh, yeah.
If you want to feel depressed, go watch the news every day. And by the end of it, you'll be depressed.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I mean, yes. Yeah. Mind you get that with certain characters. Sometimes there's one particular guy, I won't say his name, but after you meet him, if you're feeling depressed, you come away suicidal.
I should laugh. What, who has been someone like a mentor to you then, Gareth, growing up, who's kind of who you've kind of looked towards as a bit of a North Star? I believe in having someone that you kind of check in with and you speak with and they give you a bit of knowledge, wisdom. Is that someone you've always had, or you kind of self?
Well, I always admire people who get on, who've got on. Now, I've always been very, I know he's a friend of mine, but I've always very, very impressed with your uncle.
John.
John, who's the first to admit he had a humble background, but the way he developed, grew his businesses up. What I love about John as well, he's a complete star at the same time, because he's always, despite he built a marvellous business, he's always been into his rugby, into his surfing, music, and having a good time. No, I always, people who've achieved like that, I have a great admiration. I mean, some people have it laid on, family or whatever, but, John didn't.
No.
He always, he made it purely on his own volition.
Definitely. He's done extremely well and continues
to.
He's absolutely smashing me at golf at the moment, mate. So
Yeah. Yeah, you said but you played at P&K the other day, you said.
I played at Pyle and Kenfig, with a couple of other mates. Bear in mind, I've only gone into golf the last 2 months probably. Yeah. And I did my first 18 holes with him. I must have had beginner's luck. It must have happened to a lot of people. You have a good game.
Yeah.
And John was like, mate, you're a natural.
Yeah.
The next game then I was bloody terrible. I couldn't hit the ball. You know what I mean? It was just going like this. And I said, John. But then for me, I see golf like, well, it's something to learn, isn't it? Golf is like you can have bad shots and bad...
You didn't play golf really in Australia?
No.
No?
I should have. I was so invested in rugby and other, in general. I was just like, this is what I'm doing. Or you go to the beach and... Should have played golf.
Did you go surfing out there?
I tried surfing. Let's just say I was terrible at surfing.
Yeah.
I had terrible balance. But Australia's great. Have you ever been?
Well, I have been to Australia, but fleeting kind of visits. But I'd love to go there now. I'd love to go to Australia and New Zealand. No, I did go to both because I told you I started this dating business when I was 21. Yeah. Well, I left school before I was 17 and went into the Merchant Navy as an apprentice deck officer for 4 years.
Really? Wow.
Oh, yeah. I mean...
what got you into what made you want to get into that area?
I want to get away from home. No, I just wanted to see the world. I grew up in the valleys. I moved around a lot, Aberdeen, Newport, and I just wanted to get away. I wanted to see the world, and it was a great way of seeing the world, but a lot of it, you just hit the dockside bar, that's as far as you got. I wish I'd seen more of those countries, but I love New Zealand. New Zealand I was very impressed with.
I think New Zealanders are very similar to us. Very similar mannerisms and
Yeah, well, the people were very, very polite and very polite and very friendly. I found in New Zealand. The Australians I liked as well, but New Zealand were definitely a different edge to them.
I reckon Australians, depending where, were very more like English, and New Zealanders were very more like Welsh. So whatever you want to think of that, you let that sit in. But yeah, I love the place, and it's pretty crazy that we sent all of our convicts to Australia years ago when it's a beautiful country. It should have been the opposite way around. We should have sent us there and gone that way. But it's a good place. Do you when you started business at 21, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Was you kind of...
No.
27.
Sorry, 21 I started working in the estate agency business. But no, I set up my own business when I was 27.
Yeah, 27. Did you find from 27, especially the first couple of years, the foot was on the throttle all the time, just working? Or were you very much work and pleasure or leisure?
Well, I when I was there, it was definitely on the throttle, but I did have some. Although I suppose a few years after I said it, I went on a rugby tour with Bridgend Rugby Club to Canada, and that was the best holiday I've ever had. I never laughed so much in all my life. The characters there, and it was a very, very successful Bridgend team. They'd won the championship 2 years running, and they were a lovely bunch of guys. They really were very, very nice. Well, like in Alfred, I find the athletic boys really nice guys. They some of them look pretty frightening. Some of those forwards, but really nice. You come over and chat to you and all that. Very nice guys. But that was in 1972. Then 2 years later, I went to South Africa then with the Lions.
Wow.
And that was great. But it wasn't anything like as good as the Canada trip because, as I say, all the boys were together. I mean, and out in South Africa was, even then you had to worry about what quarters you went into, because apartheid was pretty rife then. And again, the country which was even nicer was Rhodesia, as it was called then.
Wow.
Lovely people up there. And you saw the Victoria Falls and that. And I remember going to that game against Rhodesia, the Lions played against Rhodesia in Salisbury, and Ian Smith was the president then, who had said stuff the UK, we're good on our own, and he had a lot of criticism. But what impressed me that game, a penalty was being taken, you could hear a pin drop. They were so very, very well mannered.
Wow.
They're very, very, very sporting like that. Again, those people, they were very much like the Rhodesian people. I thought were very much like I would describe the English pre-war. Yeah. Very polite, very well mannered, very civilized, but lovely country. Again, I was very, very tempted to emigrate out there, but
really,
but of course I already had my business back home, and I thought, well, but everything was so nice. The weather was so good, and people were so nice, and I was tempted, mind you, just as well, because not long after, of course, it then became Zimbabwe, isn't it?
Zimbabwe. Hey everyone, it's Ollie Olds here with a quick word from our incredible sponsor, Pitch Roofer. Your home is your castle, and nothing protects that castle better than a solid, reliable roof. That's where Pitch Roofer comes in. They're not just building roofs, they're building trust, community, and peace of mind. Pitch Roofer has been serving our local community for years, and what really sets them apart is their commitment to giving back, from supporting local sport teams to donating to charities. They're making a real difference beyond roofing. Together, we are stronger. Now, if your roof is looking a little worse for wear, or you are thinking it might be time for a full replacement, Pitch Roofer has got you covered with top quality solutions tailored to protect your home and boost that curb appeal. Why should you choose Pitch Roofer? Let me break it down for you. Experienced professionals. These guys know this stuff with years of expertise in residential roofing. Affordable rates, competitive pricing with no hidden costs. High quality materials, durable weather resistant products that stand the test of time. Free inspections, get the condition of your roof checked at no cost. 100% satisfaction guaranteed. They're not happy until you are. So whether it's a repair, a replacement, or you just want a peace of mind your roof is in good conditions, give Pitch Roofer a call on 01656 470016. A text message to 07540 443345 or email gerald@pitchroofer.co.uk. Pitch Roofer, building more than roofs, building a stronger community. Now, back to the show. What do you think of the politics of our country, UK?
Well, I think you're very much in... it's whoever's in power has got a very difficult job. I mean, the thing is this, Smith, I keep calling it Starmer, Keir Starmer has brought out some policies which are very unpopular, and yet, if you're realistic, he's got to bring in some of these policies, you know, because unfortunately some people think, oh, the money just comes in. Well, it's got to come from somewhere. And, you know, so he's got to increase the taxes and things like that on some things. No, I think in whether you like him or not, and I'm not saying I voted Labour, I've never voted Labour, but he's got a very difficult job to do. I think the previous government didn't do very little. This immigration problem is a terrible problem because with as far as immigrants go, especially, I mean, with the hospitals, we'd be lost without them.
Oh, definitely.
You know, we'd be lost without them. I mean, just about every doctor, you go to the Prince of Wales, you see, and any specialist, they're all mostly immigrants. And I've got the greatest respect for them. But as I say, as a Prime Minister, he's got a terrible, difficult job to do. Terrible. I wonder why these guys want it.
They must love stress.
They must love stress and being abused.
That's someone's fetish, mate.
What?
That's someone's fetish normally.
Yeah.
It's a crazy setup, I think. And then I'm not massive into politics, but then you look over to Donald Trump in America, and he's on another wave as well. It's
well, he's complete. Well, you know, he's frightening, really, what he can do. I mean, a lot of the things what he's trying to do, which he's got in there is right. He's putting the American people first, and this is why he's putting in all these tariffs. Yeah. You know, I can see where he's coming from there, but these mad statements he's making. You know, but I before he got in, I said there's going to be a third world war. It'll be down to him.
Oh, yeah, he's ruthless, isn't he?
Oh, you know, this is it. I mean, I sometimes wonder if he's all there.
I think you've got to be a little mad to be in those roles. Like you just said, to be okay with half the population not liking you or abusing you, you've got to be...
Well, he's out on his own, isn't he? He's in another planet. But... What I find annoying is when people like him, who's a very, very wealthy man, and yet he's supposed to get some businesses gone bankrupt on him.
Yes, that was back at the start. Was it still today?
Well, that's right. You know, but you think a guy. I mean, you know, I know it's very unfortunate. Some people become bankrupt through no fault of their own. I mean, but I mean. I was amazed, you know, then he could become president.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a system over there, isn't it?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, we could go on a tangent right now of going down that path.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, as you say, I try not to think too much about politics.
Yeah, no.
And sometimes I used to avoid watching the news because I found it so depressing. Yeah. But I've got to be perfectly honest with you that, I mean, every evening... I don't necessarily watch the national news. I always watch the Welsh news because, I mean, you know, I'm interested to see what's happened. I mean, same reason. I'm one of the few people, I think, who still takes the Glamorgan Gazette. I like to keep up with the local gossip.
You just like to see your brand, your company in the paper all the time.
No, well, no, those days are gone. I mean, we quit the Gazette a long time ago, and the estate agents in Bridgend and area, we formed our own newspaper called the Property News, and it was very, very successful. We had this publisher, where was it? Leominster, I think. He was very, very good. But of course, when the internet came in, and a few of us stayed with him, they were loyal, but a lot of them straight away got out.
Really?
And in the end, we continued to advertise in the Property News, but in the end, unfortunately, the poor guy the internet had killed his business, his publishing business. So the Property News folded up. But it was excellent. It was a very run, and it was run for us. And we saved a tremendous amount of money by having this paper as opposed to the Gazette. I mean, I think Gazette were really screwing us.
Really?
They were charging us a really high price for adverts. When we found out that other towns, what their local paper were charging, they were charging far less than what we were paying in the Gazette. We really were paying a lot. As I say, when we got on the Property News, we must have had something like twice as much coverage for half the price we were paying. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, it was a good thing, as I say, forming our own newspaper like that. And as I say, they were very, very good publishers, very, very good. Yeah, they worked very well. Fair play.
Thing is now that because of social media and other areas of avenues of marketing and things like that,
it's worked out worse for us because we've got to be on these internet brands, Rightmove, Zoopla, on the market.
Yeah.
Well, that's costing about $2,500 a month.
Really? Just to put them up?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
And feel you've got to do it. Also, you got ITCS, paying them close to $1,000 a month as well. Really? So the internet, I mean, these things, I know you can't avoid it, but it's costing a tremendous amount. As I said to you earlier, that to set up a business now costs far more than it did in my days.
Yeah. Far more.
The costs really, and I say Rightmove and that, and they really screw us to the ground. And because we've tried to go without them, but what do you got? You go to value a property and they say, who are you with? Rightmove or Zoopla? No, not with Rightmove. Okay, forget it.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow. And it's getting harder even with the buyers as well. I noticed the other day I got accepted for a property, an investment property, and then I missed a payment, not intentionally, just missed a payment or something. Well, I got a strike, credit file strike.
Yeah.
I went to get a mortgage on it, and the interest rate on it was crazy.
Yeah.
I was like, what is the point of me buying an investment property to get a return on it with the interest rate that way? So I think it stays on your name for X amount of time.
I know.
I'm like, it wasn't intentional. It was
that is the problem, and it does cripple you. And sometimes they can make the mistake their end, and then it could be still bloody, detrimental to yourself. Yeah. Oh no, it's one thing. That's another thing that I stay in close contact. I'm checking the balances all the time, having statements printed out to see how I'm going, because I don't want to go. Although I've got overdraft facilities, I try to stay in credit all the time.
All the time, nice.
Because although I got, as I say, the facility to go overdrawn, you can go over. God knows what they'll charge you anyway.
Of course.
I mean, the banks. Oh, don't get me started on the banks, because I mean, I think that's another route. I mean, to me, things have changed, not for the good, for the bad. Yeah. I mean, you'd go to your local branch manager, speak to him, and get. Now, you go to the local branch, if you've got a bank in that town, and they can only do private things.
100%, yeah.
You can't do any of your businesses. You got to be ringing somebody in Birmingham who sounds like they're from Peaky Blinders.
I agree with you.
You've got this all the time, and of course, when you're dealing with these people, you go put through to different departments, and then you could be speaking to somebody in Bombay. It's banks don't give anything like the service they used to.
No.
As I say, you go into your local branch and you get things sorted out, business and private. Now it's very, very difficult, and you have a group manager or whatever they call it. I got this guy. He's about the 8th guy I've had in 2 years.
Really?
And he's based up in outside Edinburgh. Yeah. Nice guy, if you could get hold of him. Yeah. But I mean, that guy, he's handling I don't know how many accounts. Yeah. It's very, very difficult for him, in all fairness. I mean, very nice guy to talk to. But, it's a... I don't like the way things are in that respect. I mean, everything was, again, used to have local building societies. You knew the manager in each one. Yeah. You know the manager of the Abbey National, the manager of the Halifax, the manager of the Alliance Celeste, and that's Woolwich, and you can have a conversation with them. Yeah. But of course, that doesn't apply now at all. No,
you're right, and I think, like you just said, then the process it is to get these applications, the process is to get in front of people. It's so much harder.
Oh yes.
Then a lot of people now are spinning plates with their own work. You don't know if you're getting mail or you're getting email, and I think there's so many avenues. Yeah. It's easy to miss something essentially, and it's easy, but it's hard then to get something sorted if you want to go. So you either have to have the capital now to do it, all of it.
Also, what I was saying earlier about staff being very important. Also, who you channel you work with. Now, as I say, we use for mortgages. We get a lot of purchases. Can you arrange the mortgage? We use a financial advisor. Very, very excellent. But that's very important. You've got to get somebody who's good. Not only good, he's got to be efficient, knows what he's doing, doesn't bullshit. Yeah. Now, we're very, very fortunate. We've got a guy in Kevin Hill, Oliver Huntley.
Hey, mate, Oliver Huntley's great. That's what we use.
Yeah.
He's got in our community, we have about 75 people in our little run club and dip. I reckon he's maybe done 10 of their mortgages in the last month or so. He's amazing, isn't he?
Nice guy, too.
Genuine.
Yes, very, very good guy. A genuine guy, a nice guy too. That's very important. Again, you're often asked to recommend solicitors. Again, you've got to know what solicitors, who to deal with. I mean, some who just hang. I mean, again, you soon work out who's the ones to recommend. And, well, again, we generally get good service from the local solicitors. It's always very frustrating where some of these people they see advertised somewhere or other, cheap fees or something, somebody in Taunton or somewhere, and you can guarantee it's going to take 3 times as long. Yeah, I agree with you. I think having that personal relationship with someone, is great. I think I've met Ollie Huntley about 4 or 5 times. And then before you know, he's come running with us. He comes sea dipping on a Friday, and I see him a regular now. He brings his boy, but he's a great guy and a good financial advisor. So very good at his job, and a nice guy with it.
With yourself, where do you see the business going? Where do you want it to go? Do you want it to go on forever, or where do you want it?
Well, I mean, I wanted Rian to take over, but I mean, I don't think she's interested.
Rian's your daughter, right?
Yes. Yeah. But she's not interested.
You said she's really good at it, though.
Oh, well, yes. She, as I say, she's got a natural aptitude, and and she's a bright girl, intelligent girl. She went to LSE.
Wow.
Oh yeah, and she and Sherry Blair. No, she was saying Sherry Blair was extremely one of the best records in the LSE.
Wow.
Not that I particularly like the woman, but
I love your honesty, mate. I love your honesty.
but no, but you got to admire her at the same time.
What was sorry, go on.
Yeah, but yes, well, she was in LSE, and then she is in the University College London. When she was in school, she was always getting A's and all that. She's very bright. I don't know where she gets it from, but no. But as I say, she's not interested in the business, and that's it. So, I mean, so when I go, well, what'll happen to it? I mean, to be honest, once I'm dead, I'm not really care, Mike. but no, my staff will take it over.
Nice, mate. I like that. What's your greatest learning from business?
What's my greatest learning from business?
What's your greatest learning that you've learned over the duration?
Well, I obviously in the stadium business, money is very important. But I can tell you one thing I have learned in life: money definitely isn't everything. And some people who made a lot of money have nothing but unhappiness. Health, of course, is the most important. But again, I think you do tend, if you're too wrapped up in the business and too wrapped up in making money, other things you neglect.
Yeah. Like
your wife, your family. I wonder why, if that's how both my marriages went west.
You're a funny man, Gav. So that was one of your biggest learnings, you reckon? Is that
as I say, especially when I hear of some cases where people made a lot of money and then it just seemed to brought. There was a very, very sad case actually a few years ago. I mean, I don't know whether you should report. Bernard Jones, he was Just Rentals. Yeah. Built up a marvellous business. He and Gerald Coleman, who I knew, but both Ron the boys, built up a marvellous business, did extremely well. I had great admiration for the two of them. Gerald Coleman unfortunately died, I think, with cancer, and he was a really nice guy, very generous. And Bernard Jones, I didn't know him terribly well, but as I say, he'd grown as such a brilliant business. Unfortunately, he lost his wife, I understand, to cancer. And he never really got over it, from what I understand. And he had two lovely daughters. One was married to one of my next-door neighbours' sons, actually, and another to a very nice guy, Neil Boubier, ex-Rugby International.
Is he the one doing all the talks now and the speaking events? Is that Neil?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, great guy. I like Neil.
Yeah, he's
strange enough, he was in school with my stepson.
Okay.
Yeah, but nice boy. I like Neil and his brothers. Very nice guy. But anyway, that guy Bernard Jones, with all what he'd achieved, all the money, it took his own life. I mean, it's terrible. I just can't get over something like that. It
makes you think. Well, what are we doing it all for then?
Well, exactly. I mean, and he was. I didn't know him well. I met him a couple of times. He was a tall, very good-looking man. A very good-looking guy. He impressed me. Lived in Lalliston, but then he moved a bit. Anyway, but I think that taught me a severe lesson that it doesn't necessarily bring you happiness. I mean, I'm sure he did have happy days, but I mean, and of course he was a big sponsor of Pontypridd Rugby Club.
Was he?
Oh yeah, wow. Oh yeah, big sponsors of Pontypridd Rugby Club.
What was the company called? Days.
Well, they were Just Rentals, then they adopted a different name, Buy As You View or something.
Oh yeah, I remember Buy As You View.
Yeah.
It used to be on the Celtic Warrior jerseys. Was that right? Years ago, or
yes, it would have been. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Because that's when Ponty and Celtic Bridgend Ravens merged.
Well, that's right. I mean, that again was a tragedy. That, I mean, they were the most successful of the regional teams.
I know.
And yet, who dumped Bridgend and Pontypridd? That was terrible.
Was Leighton Samuel a part of that as his owner then or not?
Was he then? I'm not sure if he was involved with the... I don't think he was.
No. I know he used to do with the Crusaders, the rugby league team. Remember the Celtic Crusaders?
Yeah.
He pulled the pin on them lot. And I know...
yeah. I mean, mine is one thing John pointed out the other day. At the same time, the guy... I mean, I know he he made himself very unpopular, but he must have put in a lot of money himself, mind you, in all fairness. But I always remember that guy you mentioned, the Crusaders, because he imported a lot of these Australian guys. And I'll never forget it. It may not seem particularly funny to you, but it did to me. Anyway, a bunch of them came into the office one day looking for rented accommodation, and they could tell they were really, really cheesed off. I don't think they were getting paid or whatever.
Yeah.
And I tried to make, genders and all that, but I talked to this guy, Riley, who was a very good player, actually, but he was real dour kind of Aussie, and I said, well, you got the beaches, the surf, and he said, what surf? He said, and it's the way he said it always tickled me, what surf? I
remember they were on, I think they were on the wrong visas when they came over, the Australians, so... When it all went tits up, a lot of them were banned for like 10 years coming back to the
really?
UK. Yeah, I remember bumping into Jace Van Dyke, and he lives in Australia, and he was the captain at the stage of the Celtic Crusaders back then. And he said that, we're allowed to go back now. It was like one more year, they're allowed to go back. It was 10 years. So they all had an anniversary, I think, and come back to the UK. But I remember the visas got...
all right.
But, anyway.
But you see, well, I mean... It just never took, see, the rugby league down here.
It's a shame because there's a pool of quality.
Well, mind you, I remember going down to Cardiff with a pal of mine, who strange enough, he was a guy who was in school with John, a guy by the name Andy Nichol, and we went down to Cardiff Rugby Club, and I don't know, what team was it then? It was the rugby league team then.
Where was this, sorry?
In Cardiff.
Cardiff Demons, maybe them, or a rugby league.
A rugby league, yeah.
If it was an amateur team, it'd be maybe.
I think it was early in the trying to kick off rugby league, because I tell you who was there. I always remember in the clubhouse, Jim Peters, the legendary guy.
Yeah.
Well, the guy was sitting down, and he was still bloody up there, and he was massive, massive. And I always remember there was a guy I recognised who played for Cardiff. I'm not sure he had a Welsh comp. Ian Eidman. And he was a very well-built type of guy. Strange enough, I had some dealings with him later on, and he was... I just talked to him on the phone. He was... Because he struck me, he was a really muscular, tough-looking guy. But speaking to him on the phone, what a nice guy he was. Oh, he was really, really nice. He'd taken over some photocopying firm.
Oh, wow.
And I was impressed. Again, going back to how you come across on the phone. And I was very impressed because he just struck me as, he struck me as a tough-looking guy. He was proper, and... Anyway, but that's another thing. But I always remember Jim Peters sitting there. He was still bloody happy.
Yeah. It's impressive, though. One thing I've noticed about you, Gareth, since meeting you, and not just today, but prior, is you're always very interested in other people. I picked that up already about you.
Well, yeah.
And that's a very a good skill to have.
Well, I think that, and also it's a Welsh thing, being nosy.
Well, as long as it's positive, every time I've had a chat with you, you're very, positive. All the people you've come across to me and said, and that's
life is a learning curve, isn't it? And I think by meeting people, again, this is what I do notice. A lot of people, sometimes have been into university and all that. And yet, you come across another guy who's gone straight from school into a job. And to me, I'm not saying it's in every case, but mostly it's the guy who hasn't been to university, he's got much more to say.
Yeah.
and got much more about him, I find.
Why do you think that?
Well, because they've never left school. If you understand. They've been in school, comp or grammar school or whatever, then they've gone to university. So it's school, school, school.
Yeah.
Whereas there's nothing like the best university is the university of life.
I love that.
Oh, definitely.
I totally agree with you, and I think that's why I do believe that they should educate that in school. Life, like educate life to people.
Well, I think a lot of it is, I feel very, very sorry for some of these kids coming out of university.
Yeah.
And there's no jobs for them.
No.
They may as well have stayed at home, and it's cost them a bloody bomb.
Yeah. I think there's another thing about that as well. I think we've gone so far left wing with caring and mental health and supporting and looking after people. We've made men in particular soft.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a fine line between resilience and, you know, you've actually got something going on. I think there's a fine line that we do need to, you know, I remember growing up, I did my apprenticeship when I was younger as a bricklayer. I hated it. I was terrible at it. But, geez, I had some good rollickings or, you know, put on the line when I was a kid that now I look back on, I'm like, oh, I needed that.
Yeah.
You know, learning that aspect where I think we're just...
But I always remember meeting a girl, and she was a cashier in the Halifax, and she had a law degree. Well, I thought, poor girl, been to how many years studying law? Probably about 5 years.
Yeah.
And, well, she could have gone straight from school into a bloody cashier in Halifax.
Yeah.
You know, and I thought, what a complete waste. And there's so much of that. And as I say, they come out with enormous debts.
Oh, yeah.
I remember Rian, this is the only, fair play to her, she never asked me for much. But one thing she did say about her, university loan, and if I could pay that off. Yeah, but I mean, when I paid hers off, it was nothing like what they're paying now. I mean, they're coming out with something like 40,000 a debt.
Really? Is it? That's so long. How much they are now? Wow.
It's incredible from what I read. You know, I don't meet all that many people. Yeah.
But then you're paying that off in your salary now. Is that how it's like a percentage of your wage?
Well, that's right.
Usually,
Yeah.
That's what. Yeah, I don't know. I think people, you know, if you really think about Gareth yourself, did you really know what you wanted to do at 17? I know you went to the Navy. You don't.
No, you don't.
So you're signing up to something that a degree or university that you might do a year or two of and go, I fucking hate this.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah. Oh, yes, you're right.
And I think that's why I have a lot of admiration for people who have just maybe weren't the best in school, maybe weren't the best, you know, in the classroom, but then they have just kicked on with life.
Well, yes, you're right. Well, there's so many people mature after leaving the school. Frankly, I've always, although I went to a grammar school, but I always thought, even at a young age, how unfair it was for kids because not to pass the LEM plus. You know, so when the comp came about, I think it was the right thing, although it's more difficult because you've got to stream them and that. But I remember talking to one guy, I won't say who was, and he was still for the old grammar school. And I said, well, look, it's wrong that a kid's future is decided when he's 11, for God's sake. But, I mean, as you say, various people mature or educationally or mentally or whatever, different stages. I mean, a lot after they left school.
Yeah, but they say what? The frontal lobe develops in the brain at 25, 26. So your brain's fully developed on 25, 26. Well, at 19, you're not really, you know, you're still trying to figure out your stuff, you know what I mean? And
you remind me, actually, there was one guy, I always remember the chief officer when I was in the military, he was a German, actually. He was a bastard. I hope he dies of syphilis screaming in agony. That I really hated him, you know, he really was a bastard. But I always remember him saying he didn't value anybody's opinion until they were 27.
Really?
And when I think about it, perhaps he wasn't so far wrong.
But he was a dickhead at the same time.
Oh, he was a bastard. He really was. Jesus Christ. I can imagine him putting Jews in a bloody concentration camp.
Is that type of guy?
Oh, he was a sadist. It made my life a misery. made my life. Anyway, that's another story.
What I was going to say, what was basic training like going into the Navy? Navy, you said it was?
Yeah, Merchant Navy.
Merchant Navy. What was that like? Because obviously your generation to what it is now, they could get away with murder training you guys up and speak and treat.
Yeah. Well, it was very much slave labor.
Yeah.
It really was. You expect to work all kind of hours. No. And I mean, I know it's a long time ago, but it was first year was something like £2 a week. Second year £2.50 a week. It's terrible. But it is a lot of hard training like that. But and of course now it seems to have the Merchant Navy now didn't seem to exist as far as I can see. But all foreign crews.
Right. Okay.
What we used to call WOG crews.
WOG crew.
You shouldn't say that.
I know the WOG terminology.
Yeah.
So is that what it is now then? Or
I believe so.
Really?
I believe so. But it was a good experience. But a good experience, and I always remember an old teacher of mine in Aberdeen Grammar School said it was better than a university education.
Really? So you're an Aberdeen boy?
Well, as I say, my father was in the bank, so he moved about a lot.
Yeah.
Lived in Aberdeen, Newport, the Rhondda.
Nice.
And Rhondda, I met a lot of very nice people, very friendly, the Rhondda people.
Yeah. That's true. So that's.
But we always had strong links. Because my father was from Bridgend, always had strong links.
Yeah.
With Bridgend. I used to spend all my holidays with my uncle Ron, who's a solicitor in Bridgend. And strange enough, as we grew older, now my brother, because he went to Newport High, he always had strong links with Newport.
Wow. So he lives that way?
Well, he did. Well, he lived in Caerleon for a long period.
Wow.
Unfortunately, he died on the golf course of all places.
Never.
Yeah. It's very, very sad, actually, because he was a bright, intelligent guy, went to Cambridge, but he had a different civil engineer. But he was enjoying life. He'd retired. He was enjoying life, and he was a member of the Vets Golf Club. And they were playing over in, I believe it's called Painswick or somewhere in Gloucestershire.
Yeah.
And he and his partner were walking up this hill. They were, oh, God, this is pretty steep, because they were starting on something like the 10th or the 12th. And they said, oh, yeah, we've got to come around here again. And then this guy said, what club are you taking, Lynn? He said, a 4-iron. Took it to the 4-iron. No
way.
Oh, yeah. Good way to die, but yeah. But he was only 61 and 70 yet. He was only 69.
Young.
Yeah. But it's very, very sad because, as I say, he seemed to be really he'd had a tough time in business. And, as I say, he was retired now. He was enjoying his life. And I thought it was awfully sad for that to happen then.
Off that, do you hear about that sometimes? Not a lot of people, some people, they retire and they die not long after it sometimes.
Well, yeah, but I think it was a case of he was overweight, smoked cigars mostly, and I say, climbing up this steep hill at it, you see.
Wow, his heart rate was just shot up.
Yeah. It can happen. I quite appreciate it,
If you could give someone like myself advice from all of your learnings and you could bottle it all up and give me a message, what would you say it would be, Gar?
Hard to say. Find the right woman.
I appreciate that, mate.
I think in many cases the right woman can lead a man, help him along a lot.
Yeah.
I didn't have that.
But you've done pretty well considering that then.
No, quite.
Yeah. Well, Gar, you only said 10 minutes this chat. It's been an hour and 15.
It hasn't, has it?
It has, mate. Time flies when you're having fun.
Are we off the air now?
Not yet.
Oh.
Last question is, Yeah, well, I think that was the one I wanted to know. But last question I always ask all my guests is, what are you grateful for?
Health.
Health.
My health, yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I'm very, very, that's what the most thing. Because, strange enough, I still smoke. I smoke normally 10 cigarettes a day. I don't drink as much as I used to. I used to drink a bottle of wine at least every night. But for a couple of years now, I only drink generally if I go out to a function or go out to dinner. Um, but no, I think health, you know, and I think, as I say, the introduction to walking
Yeah.
with Gareth Williams and Graham Hodgson, because although you do walk a certain amount in golf, but you're stopping, starting, and then as you get on in age, you're using a buggy. I think it has contributed a lot to my health
Good, I like
by
that.
walking. I think it's very, but no, health. I mean, because you see so much of it.
Yeah.
You see people. I mean, especially my daughter reckons 1 in 2 get cancer nowadays. But there's so much of that around. But I see people, some of them hunched up, and you know, obviously in a lot of difficulty walking. And I think, Christ, I'm touch wood. I've been very, very lucky.
100%, I totally agree. I think health is the main catalyst, right?
Oh,
You know?
it is. As I say, you know, going back to what you said about money and that. Oh no, it doesn't matter how much money you got. Health is the most. Well, then again, these guys, you know, you see these American film stars, Hollywood film stars, and they, you know, dying of cancer, things like that. No matter how much money they got, no matter how much they can spend on specialists. Yeah.
I agree with you. I totally agree. Gareth, it's been an absolute pleasure.